one of the things that I've done, and I did this actually New Year's a year ago, I wrote a letter to a couple of people that had hurt me. And I said, you have hurt me. And I feel you have to be past the really hard emotion so you can do this with a sense of peace. I have chosen to forgive you. I am moving forward with my life. There is a chance you may hurt me because they're still in my life, but I'm going to forgive you again. And then I took that letter and with Connie, read it, and we took it outside and we burned it. And that is one of the most powerful things that I've ever done. I talked to a lady and I had some family going through some stuff. And she said, and I refuse to say these words, but she said, in order to get the emotion out, write an FU letter. Just dump everything on paper, put it out there, but don't send it to the person because that's not going to serve you. Don't burn it because I just feel that burning puts something out, and that's me. Shred it, flush it down the toilet. Don't plug the toilet, but just get rid of it. And then by dumping those hard emotions, you can move forward.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Flourish Podcast. I'm so pumped today to have with us our very special guest. Her name is Diane Stevenson. I'm a true lover of Diane. Welcome, Diane. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm doing really good.
And I say that with all due respect because not only have we been friends for a long time, but we've actually worked together for how long now? Probably...
I think I got my first certification about 8 years ago. 8
years ago. And that would be when Diane and I first had the pleasure of meeting. Yeah. And we've had a friendship. We've had a coaching relationship. We actually even attend the same church together kind of since then. And so this conversation is going to be kind of wide ranging, imagining just like it's two friends chatting, talking about flourishing in life. So, hey, tell us about you, Diane.
Tell about me.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. So much. I've lived so much life.
And yet you're still so young.
I'm still here.
Yeah. That's right.
Life has been awesome, actually. I mean, I'm the oldest of four.
Okay.
And my siblings like to tell me I'm the shortest of four.
Okay.
So
oldest but the shortest.
The oldest but the shortest.
That's right.
But I mean, I had a great life growing up. There's been a few little hiccups along the way.
Okay.
Stuff has happened, and we have a choice to get stuck or to move forward from it. I've had a lot of different careers. And the thing that I think really got me into coaching, what attracted me to it was I've always worked with people.
Nice.
And I've loved working with people, even though other parts of the job were fabulous.
Yep.
But that was my favorite part.
So where did you grow up? Diane, did you crawl out of the cave somewhere? Tell us where you grew up.
Red Deer is where I grew up.
Red Deer,
I was born
Alberta.
in Calgary,
Awesome.
grew up in Red Deer,
Okay.
and then moved to Calgary in 2000 to get a degree.
Okay.
And moved back to Red Deer and met somebody and got married and stayed here.
Okay. And so your folks, are they still in the Red Deer area?
They're in Sylvan Lake.
In Sylvan Lake,
Yeah.
okay.
And my dad is having his 92nd birthday on Tuesday.
Wow.
Yeah.
92 years old.
92 and still going strong.
And your mom is?
Mom's 87. She'll be 88 next month. So.
Okay. So you're an Alberta girl?
I'm an Alberta girl.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you love about Alberta? I mean, not that, maybe you're listening to this on the other side of the world, but Alberta is a really cool place. So what do you love about it?
It's sunny.
Yes.
Even though we have minus 50, but it's still sunny.
Yes.
And we have the mountains. I mean, we just have so much nature. We have lakes, not quite like some of the other provinces, but a lot of lakes and places to visit. And it's nature. If you like nature, there's so much to see. And the people are awesome.
People are great. Yeah. And so how did your career start? What industry were you in? What were you doing? And tell us a little bit about your career progression.
Which career are we talking?
Yeah. Well, hey, it's up to you.
My very first job was a server in a truck stop.
Hey, love it.
I was 15.
15. Okay. In a truck stop.
In a truck stop. That's a learning experience. So it was a typical teenage job. Nice. So I had that one working in the theater.
Yeah.
I don't know, other things. I eventually got into banking, spent 13 years in banking.
Okay. Which
led me to university here.
Yeah.
And 19 years in the mortgage industry.
Okay. And what did you study in university?
I got a Bachelor of Management from University of Lethbridge.
Nice.
And with a marketing major.
Very cool. Yeah. And then spent time in mortgages.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because if you don't know, apologize for all the local references, but we're in Calgary, and Calgary is literally the fastest growing city in Canada. And It's not the biggest city and it's not the wealthiest, but per capita, it is the wealthiest. And so tell us about 19 years in the mortgage industry in this town.
It's interesting. I started off as an assistant to two partners in a company.
Okay.
And it was a great way to learn. And I think anybody that's doing anything, if you're looking at coaching or whatever you're looking at doing, start at the bottom. Yeah. And I think it's learn the basics before you start moving forward. Yeah. And I literally started going through files and what conditions need to be met and what has to happen. And so then when I finally got to doing a lot of other stuff, I knew what to do.
Okay. And so do you have children yourself?
I have one beautiful daughter.
Awesome.
And she lives in Red Deer, and I have 3 amazing grandchildren. They're 14, 16, almost 17, and 19.
Wow. Grandkids.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. And
blessing.
It is. Yeah, totally. So now you have pivoted into coaching. And so you talked a bit about it, but what kind of drove that for you?
It's really funny because we see things all the time that don't register. Mm-hmm. And I think you were probably involved in this, and through CanFit Pro, because at the time I was actually instructing fitness kickboxing.
Nice.
And one of the programs came out and I read it and it's like, okay, we'll just put it aside. But it was an idea that never left. I hung on to it, and as stuff was coming out, I thought I need to do this. It just really feels like I can make a difference by coaching people and listening and finding out what their needs are. We can help them move forward in whatever area of their life that they're seeking help in.
Yeah.
And other things that come up as you're talking.
Yeah. And so has helping people been, how long has that been a part of your heart or your mindset, your journey?
I don't know. Always. I mean, I look at, volunteering. When my daughter was younger, I was a Girl Guide leader. I was, I do back when we did door-to-door fundraising for organizations, I took part in that. And it's always been, how can I help?
Okay. And so in your coaching, is there some specialization that you have? What do you like to focus on?
Relationships is a really big one.
Okay.
And whatever that relationship happens to be, helping people to move forward in relationships. And the focus the last little while has been on forgiveness.
Okay. Forgiveness. That's an interesting word, isn't it?
That's a big word.
Tell us about that. Like what kind of led you to have a message around forgiveness?
When we had the Speak Like a Pro program. And people were trying to figure out what their big topic was going to be.
Right.
We were challenged by Connie, lovely Connie. And her question was, if this was the last speech that you were ever going to give, what would it be about? Nice. And that just instantly came to mind. And that was a time when there was a lot of talk about the reconciliation with the Indigenous people. But people were coming out and saying, I can't forgive. And it broke my heart.
Okay.
Because we have to choose, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the hardest thing we've ever done. But for us, we have to take those steps.
Okay. And so what have you learned about forgiveness then?
I had a lot to do.
You did.
I had a lot of forgiving to do. Yeah.
Okay.
And some steps, but it's, when I started studying it, how does it affect us mentally, emotionally, physically? What does it do to us? And how can it affect the people around us as well? And how do we let it go? And self-forgiveness is quite often the hardest thing we can ever do.
So if a person decides because there's a lot of people who decide this, and I've heard them say it. They've said it to me. I'm just not going to forgive. Why should they forgive? And why not just hang on to your unforgiveness or to your bitterness? I mean, what's wrong with that? They weren't the one who did wrong in the first place. So now I'm just going to hang on to this thing. Like, what's the problem?
The biggest thing is if I forgive them, they're going to get away with it. And that is what we have to let go of. They already have gotten away with it. But by forgiving them and saying, I am letting go of this, you're getting them out of your head.
Right.
And then you win. They're not going to win anymore because you've moved on from them.
So if you don't forgive, there's a chance that they're still winning, the person who caused the hurt.
Totally, whether they're in your life or not.
Okay. And are there any consequences, sort of mentally, emotionally, physically, if I don't forgive, or is it pretty much cost-free?
Totally not cost-free. If you don't forgive, it can affect your friendships, because what are you stuck on? You're stuck on that person that's hurt you. Physically, it can cause heart problems. It can cause high blood pressure. There's so many things. And mentally and emotionally, you're stuck. You don't move forward, and you can't figure out why you're not moving forward in your life. It's like you have to let that go.
Right. Yeah. So a little while ago, I was working with a client who was describing to me her journey of, some abandonment and some abuse and some pain that she had experienced. And it seemed to her, like what she said to me, and I have no reason to doubt or question, that the person and the people who caused this hadn't taken responsibility. And I suggested to her, well, none of that is your fault, but it's probably best for you still to figure out how to forgive. And her question to me was, well, how? And, I wonder if she was asking you, how, what would you tell her? Because it's not, like, as far as I can tell, it's not easy to forgive.
Not at all. The first thing to do is to make the decision.
Make the decision. Okay. Step one.
And find somebody who can help you work through whatever it is that you need.
Okay.
Because I think there's steps that need to be taken. I am going to decide, and it may still be really emotional, and we need to get ultimately past the emotion, but on a daily basis. It could be, Abe, I forgive you. Abe, I forgive you. Abe, I forgive you. And whether you're in my life or not, eventually that's going to move from your head to your heart, and you can actually let it go. One of the things that I've done, and I did this actually New Year's a year ago, I wrote a letter to a couple of people that had hurt me. And I said, you have hurt me, and I feel you have to be past the really hard emotion so you can do this with a sense of peace. But I have chosen to forgive you. I am moving forward with my life.
Nice.
There is a chance you may hurt me because they're still in my life, but I'm going to forgive you again. And then I took that letter and with Connie, read it, and we took it outside and we burned it. And that is one of the most powerful things that I've ever done.
Right.
But sometimes to get to that point, and I talked to a lady, and I had some family going through some stuff, and she said, and I refused to say these words, but she said, in order to get the emotion out, write an FU letter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just dump. Yep. Put everything on paper, put it out there, but don't send it to the person, because that's not going to serve you.
Right.
Don't burn it, because I just feel that burning puts something out, and that's me. Shred it, flush it down the toilet. Don't plug the toilet, but just get rid of it. And then by dumping those hard emotions, you can move forward.
Yeah. And I think what you're speaking to, like at least one of the things, is that, forgiveness is a process. And, there's a lot of courage involved in forgiveness.
Big time.
Right? And I think it's who was it, Buddha, who said that a person with anger, who holds on to anger, is like a person who takes poison themselves, expecting the other person to be harmed, right? And I think, yes, it's hard, right, to forgive, but the alternate is that you're hanging on to something that could cause you much greater damage.
Yeah.
And like you said, they've already damaged you once.
Yeah.
Why would you let them continue to damage you by not letting it go?
And depending on the person, and they may not realize they hurt you.
Right.
And maybe depending on your relationship with them, you can go back to them and you can say, you hurt me.
Yeah.
And this is what you did.
Yeah.
And chances are good, if you've got a good relationship, they're going to acknowledge it and they're going to apologize.
Yeah.
Other people, it's toxic.
Yes.
I mean, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I think the other thing we have to think of when we look at forgiveness is there's still consequences.
Yes.
Like if it's something that's happened, like in my own case, I was sexually assaulted twice, once when I was 15 and once when I was 40. The second time I reported it.
Okay.
And, it's funny because I totally forgot the guy's name, got a phone call from the RCMP several years later, and she was shocked that I would forget his name, but I put that in my past and it did affect him. And, but that was a big, I had to forgive him for sure and move forward. Yeah. But it's not getting stuck. I think that's just it. It's like, we're going to move forward in this.
Yeah.
But there was a consequence in that case. And it doesn't mean, and I just finished reading Henry Cloud's book on trust.
Yes. Very good.
We may not ever trust them again, and that's okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to maintain a relationship. There's a lot of things that people think they need to do with forgiveness, and we don't. It's up to us. It's our journey.
So I'm sorry that you experienced that. Very sorry. But it's interesting how you mention, I think, the distinction between the forgiveness that occurs for me as the person who was hurt or victimized, and the restoration of relationship, which would then happen for them. And I think that often we think that's the same. And I always like to help people understand that those are two different transactions. So tell us a little bit about that.
The restoration of the relationship. Well, when I wrote this letter, I mean, these people are still in my life, and they would never see that letter, because I know that could cause some serious damage.
Right.
But I can move forward with a different mindset.
Okay.
I've let go of this stuff, and I can see a difference in my attitude, actually. Mm-hmm. But it's choice.
Right.
So much choice.
But just because, I always like to say to somebody, I forgive for my mental health. But restoring the relationship, that's actually a whole different concept, like you're saying, around trust. And that is on you. In other words, are you going to take responsibility? Are you going to rebuild the trust? And just because I forgive doesn't even necessarily mean that I'm open to that. So it's interesting, because this same lady I was telling you about, she was like, yeah, but I don't want to have a relationship with them. And I'm like, you don't have to. You're not actually forgiving them for them. You're forgiving them for you. It's the best, most sacred, selfish thing you can do is forgiveness. And the idea of reestablishing a relationship, that's a completely different question that you don't even need to think about right now, because you're not in a good head place to even think about it. You shouldn't be thinking about it. Right now, it's just forgive, because that poison is probably hurting you more than them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the one thing that came to mind, and I've talked about this before, with the second one, which is when I wound up at the reporting it, is I went to the sexual assault center.
Okay.
And she took me to the police station. We did the report and went back to the office. And what she said to me, and I've said this before, it changed my life. She said, you are no longer a victim. You're a survivor, because you took action. Right. And I think that far too often we get stuck with that victim mindset.
Yes.
And it's like, I did something. Right. I am a survivor.
Right on. And that's where the power comes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, owning your mental and emotional real estate, not allowing that person to dominate based on what they did. But by forgiveness, what you're actually doing, I think, is taking that real estate back.
Yeah.
And that's all you got. Like, what else do you have besides your mind and your emotions, how you feel? You got to maintain that real estate. Otherwise, it's a horrible place to be. So if somebody wants to work with you, Diane, what kind of coaching? You said you're doing some relationships. Yes. And are there things that you can sort of help people with? And then how could somebody get in touch with you?
Okay. So I think a lot of the things with relationships too is, beyond forgiveness, is sometimes we need to get out of our own heads. Like, what are some of the things that have happened to us? What are some of the things that we're doing to move forward? How can we change our mindset? And we talk a lot about mindset, and let's make the shifts.
Right.
And what can we do to work on ourselves to absolutely become our best?
Right.
To become that best person. And by doing that, we're going to benefit ourselves, and we're going to benefit the people around us, and we're going to enrich the relationships of the other people that we are with.
Right on.
Yeah.
Love that. So your website is?
It's yourlifecoaching.ca.
It's yourlifecoaching.ca. And so, hey folks, I really encourage you to reach out to Diane. I know that her client mixture is very diverse. She works with young, she works with older, she works with men, she works with women. But the idea is, the maturity I think that Diane has means that there's probably nothing you could throw at her as a client that she hasn't heard and isn't able to help and support and handle. And that's a real precious thing. You know, I don't want to go to my 9-year-old for a lot of coaching. You know, she gives me a little bit. The other day she said, Daddy, I'm not bossy. It's leadership. You know what I mean? And so I'm going to get a little bit of wisdom from her, but she's got a little ways to go to catch up to catch up to Diane. But, Diane, really love you. And I can completely vouch for you as a coach, but just more important as a human. Your integrity is profound, your strength, your wisdom. And so please reach out. It's yourlifecoaching.ca. So any final thoughts for our friends and viewers here today?
I just think take a look at your heart, decide what it is you really need to do, and forgive for you.
Forgive for you.
For you.
That's straight from the heart from Diane Stevenson. Straight from the heart. Okay, we won't do that. I need a couple of drinks to do my karaoke properly, and all I have is water today. But thanks, Diane. So do it for you, straight from the heart, Diane. And please do check her out. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody in our next episode. Take care.
Yeah.